Tonight's meditation, hi Beatrice. Tonight's meditation is question and answer, and this is my favorite, as always. I'm sure that you guys are going to have some incredible, insightful questions, and my answers will be just as incredible and insightful as your questions are. This is a great opportunity to kind of see where everybody's at with their practice and with life, and to really connect what we're doing to what's going on outside of practice, what's going on outside of the dojo, which we've been doing a lot lately because nobody's allowed to be in the dojo except for me and tonight, Tanya. So I did already have one question that I definitely want to talk about. And a student was telling me about her experience dealing with this. I would say it's a recent anti-Asian kind of, feeling swelling up in the country and in the world, but it's not really recent. It's just where it's becoming more obvious recently, but we've had this problem in our country for years for every minority. And the people who were killed recently, I know they're still investigating and figuring it out, but seems pretty clearly to be a hate crime, and just one example of many awful things that have happened over the recent past. And there's no question that this is a scarier time, a more obviously scary time for minorities in this country. And so the student was talking about her experience encountering this hate and this kind of attitude that comes, for no reason. And she was describing her response to this bigotry, and whether it's because of race or gender or both, or sexuality, preference, whatever it is, you're experiencing bigotry. She said that her immediate reaction is to kind of fly off the handle and to have an immediate, like a knee-jerk response of anger and pushing back. And I'll say right from the get, I totally understand that. And I think there are a few things that make most of us angry. And when you see somebody being very clearly discriminated against for no reason, or being hated for no reason, I try not to hate anybody for any reason, but especially when it's something that you're born with. That's a ridiculous thing to hate somebody for. And the question was really interesting because at least a real part of the meat of the question was, how do I deal with my response of immediately reacting like that, with anger, with aggression to match aggression? And first of all, I'll say that not only is it often justified to respond to something like that with your own aggression and your own kind of anger, but sometimes it is actually useful to do that. And I will say that there's a real kind of stickiness to this, because I personally don't believe that more hate or more aggression or more anger is the answer. But I think that if we don't get angry about it and about things like this, then nothing changes. Now, there's a very fine line here that I would like to draw, and that I'm going to fully admit is very difficult to walk this line, but I'm going to lay it out there and set it as a suggestion, which is we can have hatred or aggression or bigotry pointed at us, which as a white man in America just does not really happen to me at all. But I'm going to suggest that it is possible for us to have this energy pointed at us, and to not take it personally for us, but to still recognize that it is an issue. And if we make it about other people, like we recognize that this hatred towards a race or towards a gender has no place in our society, and I can get angry on behalf of other people, it's a very interesting, very subtle change that now gives me power. And when I'm not making it about me, then I have the ability to kind of be in a more solid, powerful place and act from there, and to not actually lose my cool as much. I can decide I'm going to get angry, or I get angry, it's on behalf of somebody else. If it's not about me, then I'm not going to say the stakes aren't as high for me, because they are. They're high. They're as high as they can possibly be. It's our whole society, and really like our democracy and democracy in general is at stake these days. But when I don't make it about me, instead of it feeling like it is kind of compressing me, instead of it feeling like this hatred is kind of pushing me and squeezing me, I realize that if this is something that's happening to other people, that helps me to step outside of myself and my own experience. And I'm not necessarily saying you're supposed to be like Superman or Superwoman and like step into it and get into the middle of it in a physical situation where you're putting yourself in physical danger. Although in some cases that might be necessary, and it might be a choice that you make. But I mean to insert yourself into the conversation in a way that's like, I'm not going to allow you to say this thing, even though you might be directing it at me. I'm talking about this from the perspective of all women or all minorities or whatever it is. And it's going to be much more powerful for those of you that are actually speaking from that place, from that experience. But this ability to not make it about us as individuals, but to make it about a group of people either that we belong to or that we recognize as being, stepped on, oppressed, then that slight change can usually open up a new way of feeling and being with this. Now, again, that's the only option I have, because I'm not feeling particularly oppressed as a white man again in America. But I think that for those of you who do feel individually attacked, and you feel like your power is kind of taken away from you in that way, or if you feel like you immediately lash back out with aggression, and you recognize that might either become a dangerous situation for you, or you might recognize that actually this isn't the most kind of powerful way for me to handle this. I want to handle this from a place where I am very rock solid and unmovable and unshakable. That doesn't usually happen when it's just us, when it's just one person. When we are connecting to a bigger group, that becomes more possible for us. So there's another part of this which I always try to bring up, and is very difficult when you're talking about like bigotry and racism and sexism and all of that. But when you do have the ability to put yourself in that person's shoes and see things from their point of view, this new perspective, or this ability to sympathize with somebody who, let's be honest, I don't think that at least most people, if not all people, are born with this kind of hate. It's something that they learn. And if we can recognize that even though this person is really awful right now, they probably weren't like that when they were a baby. And so this is a thing that happened to them on some level. They are also a victim. Now, if we are, if we're looking at it that way, and that gives us a sense of power and understanding and ability to communicate with each other from a better perspective, great, use it. Practically speaking, it's really tough to be face to face with this and to not lash out, or as I've talked about in the past, in my case, sometimes to feel made small and to feel like powerless. It's very difficult to not have that immediate response. But we want to be able to create a pause between what happens to us, the stimulus in our life, and our response to it. So Seafood Brown would talk about this all the time. My Seafood, there's stimulus, response. We don't want there to be an immediate response, because then we take our agency out of the equation. We want to create a pause there. And now in the pause, you might decide what is called for right now is some swift, aggressive kind of action, be it verbal or physical or whatever. And the pause doesn't have to be a very long pause. I think this is part of the problem that we have in society, is we either have no pause at all, or we have a pause that lasts centuries or at least decades, and we just don't do anything about it. So we want the pause to be as short as possible, to be able to buy us the perspective or the centeredness to then act in the most powerful possible way. And this is useful in so many situations in life. So really try to do this. And this is what meditation is for on some level, is to create the pause. So when we see what we see, hear what we hear, experience whatever we experience, rather than immediately have our actions immediately connected to that, we want to insert at least a little pause. And even if that is literally a moment, could be a split second, could just be just a breath, and then choose where to go from there. Not easy in the moment when there's hate involved and when there's real aggression involved. It's very difficult. And I'm not trying to say that you're bad person if you're not able to take that pause. I am just suggesting that if it's possible, that you will probably find that you can choose the perspective, you can choose how you're going to respond, even if it is like I'm showing anger or I'm showing aggression, even though maybe I don't actually have that taking over inside in my heart. I'm able to show it in a way that is appropriately going to move somebody. And it's all a tall order, but this is part of what we're working on in our practice, right? So our emotions are tools for us, and they can spur us into action, and we want to be able to use those tools. We don't want to be used by our emotions. So creating the pause allows us to choose our thoughts, allows us to choose our emotions and choose our actions. So I hope that helps. Other question. If you guys are here on Zoom and you have a question, you can type it. If you guys are watching at home, you can type it. If you guys want to raise your hand and ask it, you can do that as well. Anybody? Frida, go ahead.
So something I've been going through physically and as a direct, part of a result of the natural aging process is having to come to the realization that I can't do, or I can't push as hard as I used to physically because of certain things that are going on, partly overuse, partly age. So my question to you is, as a martial artist, how do you overcome the inhibition that sets in, and the self-doubt that sets in due to injuries from things you can't control, like the aging process?
Yeah, this is a great question for everybody to consider, because none of us are getting any younger. And I see another question here that I'll get to in a second about starting meditation. But so our bodies are this incredible gift that we want to take care of the best that we can. And that might include taking a rest sometimes. That might include stretching. It should include stretching and eating correctly and sleeping right and all of that stuff. But what Frida's asking about is a little bit more specific. This idea of, maybe I've had an injury or I've had an experience of real pain, and like something that I know was wrong, and that makes me a little bit tentative, a little bit shy to go all out. And I know for you, you've got one level. It's at 11 out of 10 in everything that you do. And this has been a real challenge for you, which I know that you're up for, which is why you keep coming back. And I want to acknowledge that. And let's recognize that part of what you're feeling is due to, how hard you push yourself in class. And a lot of people have the opposite problem. They never push themselves hard enough, and so they don't get the experience of pain or their body breaking down maybe as quickly, but they also don't get the workout and a lot of the mental and emotional benefits of class too. So you want to push yourself, but you want to find your balance. So what you're maybe asking is finding the balance, like you think that your balance is probably a little bit less than you've been throwing in class. And this could be with any physical activity that you guys are taking on, where you're recognizing like this hurts, it hurts all the time. It hurts more than it should. I know this. So how do I deal with that? And I'm actually feeling okay now. How do I deal with that kind of that hesitation to throw harder than I am now because of what I've experienced in the past? And I'll say that it is perfectly okay for you, especially, to take your time wading back into this, because you know what it's like to go as hard as you possibly can. You want to slowly you're at right now, let's say you're like a 5, and you want to turn it up to a 6 for a week or two, and then turn it up to a 7 for a week or two, and just slowly but surely feel yourself going in the right direction. What we don't want to do is, and this is what happens often in the beginning, is you go so hard in the beginning that you just fall off and quit completely and never come back because of injuries, or because of you just like can't figure out how to best monitor this for your body. So it's better to slowly but surely in the beginning do this. Now, you didn't have that happen in the beginning, so now you're kind of like starting over. Treat this like, okay, this is my second chance. And this is a good way for you to think of it, Frida. Don't think of it like I can't do it the way that I used to. Think of it like the way I used to do it was wrong, and now I've got a second chance to get it right. So I'm going to slowly go, slowly amp it up. And that kind of mindset, I think, will be very helpful, first of all, because many people suffer a setback with their body, and they start to get in their heads like, I just can't do it the way that I used to do it. I'm getting older, and it's just not for me. And those are the people that then, pretty quickly start using a walker, and then pretty quickly start using a wheelchair, and then that's it, right? I've been working with somebody who suffers from fibromyalgia and had a very serious back injury and was laid out, like almost unable to move for a very long time. And she slowly but surely worked back up to it. And she was an athlete and was, able to do really great things with her body, and has taken some time, some real time and some real effort to get back to that. And the main battle for her, which is the main battle that a lot of people in her situation are battling with, is the desire to just kind of give up, or to just give into the new normal and say that this is just the way that it's going to be. So there's, again, kind of a fine line here between giving up and being okay with it just never getting any better, and going so hard that you end up just keep injuring yourself and actually making it worse than it could be. So find what the real balance is for your body, slowly and responsibly, and don't give into this idea that I'm just sliding down and never going to get better. But that's distinct from ignoring the signals from your body and just pretending that you're still, 20 years old. You're not. But just because your body doesn't have the kind of natural momentum of getting stronger and getting more flexible and getting faster, and this is the way that people experience starting martial arts later in life often, is they're like, this is going to take some real time and some real work. Enjoy it. Enjoy that, and kind of revel in the challenge of not just pushing yourself as hard as you can. That's something that you're already good at. That's something that you've already done. You've mastered that. What you need to master now is the challenge of really listening to your body and knowing what is right. But fear is not what we want to be acting from. And so that sounds like the real issue at hand here is, how can I do that without being stuck in fear of injuring myself? Keep listening, keep relaxing in between counts, and just be very confident that as long as you're taking your time and being responsible with your body, that you can go a little bit harder than you went last time. If it didn't hurt last time, go a little bit harder. If you went a little bit harder last time and now you're right up at the edge and you can feel like, I'm quite sore still, then either don't go further than that or take it back just a little bit. But you got to feel confident that as long as you are not, injured from what you did last time, you can go a little bit more. And a little bit more is up to you exactly what that looks like. But if it is at least 1% harder, 1% higher with your kicks, 1% faster with your movement, then that's good. And within a couple of months, you'll really find by this process of creeping up on it, you'll find what the right balance is for you, and you'll get there safely, and you'll feel really good about it. So this is a big important part in this process is to allow yourself to feel good about making those little improvements and celebrate them without comparing it to the way that you used to be, because that's not who you are anymore. You're better in many ways and maybe worse in some ways, but who cares about those things? Okay, I see you got a question from Beatrice too. I'm going to answer this question though first. I'd like to start meditating, but it's hard for me to focus. Any advice on how to keep your focus? Yes, you should meditate. And this is, look, there are lots of different forms of meditation, and I'm not going to say that the way that we do it is the only best way and you must meditate this way. And I will definitely say that a lot of people feel this way, that sitting and meditating is very difficult to keep your focus and your mind wanders very easily. That's part of the experience of meditation that you've got to get okay with. You can also think about coupling it with moving meditations like Tai Chi, like yoga, like something you can just simply, walk and breathe and have your focus be on a smaller number of things, but maybe not only on the one thing of the breath. A great way to ease your way into meditation with each meditation is to count your breaths. So you sit in the posture of your meditation, something where your back is straight. I'll go over the basics actually of your meditation posture here for those of you who are thinking about starting, because I know I don't usually do that at the end of class. But you're sitting. I like to sit in seiza. You can't do this for very long, most people, so maybe cross-legged for you is good. Your spine is straight, so you don't want to be hunching this way, and you do not want your head to be looking down. So you want to be in a position where your spine is straight, your shoulders are rolled back, and your hands are upturned at your thighs. Your chin is parallel to the ground. Your eyes are closed, and you're looking slightly up. So they say focusing on the third eye, but not crossing your eyes when you do this. So the eyes slightly upturned will help you with your focus. It'll help you not fall asleep. The physical position of your body is super important to help you to keep your focus in meditation, because if you are slouching or your eyes are open or looking down, it's going to make it harder to focus. But try this. First, start with 1 minute. If you sit for 10 minutes and you can't do it, start with 1 minute. And be as focused as you can for 1 minute without beating yourself up when your mind wanders. Just try to focus on the breath. And you might find that even that is difficult, so count the breaths. Count not only how many breaths are you taking, but count the length of each breath. So count to 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way to 10, and then count breathing out all the way to 10. And do that for a while, because now your mind has a little bit more to focus on. Just like it does in a moving meditation, your mind can be more focused and in the moment here, which then you can take away the counting, because that's not really meditating. If you're counting, that's counting. And then you can just focus on the breath, or just focus on whatever it is that your focal point is. That will help with your meditation to go from everyday waking mind with lots of thoughts to, okay, I'm counting the breath, which is something that I can keep my mind focused on enough. And then I try to wean myself off of counting the breath and just be there with the breath and feel it. So good luck with that, and definitely keep trying to start meditation. Keep making it a daily endeavor, even if it's only for 1 minute. So I have another question here. Do you believe that the truth is freeing, even if it hurts or upsets people? For example, when you work with people that are difficult or bad at listening, how do you confront them without upsetting them or getting them defensive? And I often think about push hands, which helps, but wondering if so push hands in Tai Chi is like, I'm not just shoving this person over, I'm using their energy, and it's a conversation with the body, not just me pushing, but I'm feeling my partner's energy. We want to do that with conversations. So wondering if there are other martial arts mindsets or mentalities that we can channel to stay focused on the truth and not get derailed by the other person's powerful emotional response. Okay, this is a long question. I don't know if I'm gonna have time for anybody else's. This is good. Truth is freeing. Okay, so I've got a very simple way for you to think of this, which is you can be very truthful to somebody without being a jerk when you are aware of how, yes, you can, when you're aware of how they are taking what you're hearing. And sometimes you should be a jerk and need to be a jerk in order for them to hear you. It depends on the kind of person. It depends on the person and what kind of mood they're in and all of that stuff. But don't take that to mean, well, Sifu says, I got to be a jerk to everybody, so here I go out into the world to throw some truth at some people. No. When people get defensive, it's because they are taking it personally, but it's also because there's almost guaranteed something in what you're saying that is directed at that person as an individual, and it's ego. It's ego on ego. And this is why people start to take it personally, and this is why a conversation does not happen. It's an argument. It's not push hands. It's I'm pushing you as hard as you can, and you're pushing me as hard as you can, and we hate the whole thing. Push hands is a conversation because we're feeling, and part of that means you are aware of how this person is going to take what you're saying. And it's not just the words that you're saying, it's how you're saying it. And this starts with us. We've got to get ourselves into the right state And don't get me wrong, I'm not talking about manipulation here. I'm talking about really getting ourselves to an egoless place where what we're saying is not something that we're trying to benefit us. We don't have an agenda for us. This is just like, this is the truth as I see it in its truest, purest form, not my truth that is, important to just me, but this is like actual truth. That is always free. Our version of the truth that comes from the ego is not usually freeing for anybody. It's not freeing for us or the other person. And that's distinct from knowing your truth, like from your highest self, from your individual perspective, but you can still have that without it being something that is really about your ego, something that is ego driven, the small mind, that it's like me versus you, right? So similar to what I was talking about in the beginning of class, if we have the ability to step out of that mindset and really connect to what the other person is feeling, that is a great way to let go of our ego and just be there with that person. And they can sense when you're really there with them, and they will not, if you are really there with them and you can really hear and really understand what they're experiencing, they will almost certainly not lash out, and it's not going to feel like this. Because whenever we feel heard, we are just like, we melt. It's like, oh, what is this experience? I've never had it before. Somebody's actually listening to me. It's amazing. And it's not purely the act of just sitting there and going, Sometimes you might have to repeat what that person is saying. And sometimes you might try to get at their emotional state and be able to really use your words and your emotions to feel what they're feeling. And in that place, when you're right there with them, the real truth will come up. And since it's not coming from your ego, it's going to land in a way that is just perfect. It's going to move them in the way that they really need to be moved. How do you do that? That's very tough. Again, like meditation is great to clear up your ego and set it aside. Really just connecting yourself to the other person's experience is a wonderful way to let yourself go and be there in your purest form, right? So connecting to somebody else, this is one of the reasons why relationships are so great when they're great, is because it's not about us. It's about us. It's not about me. And it's not about me separate from you. It's about us together in the way that we are really connecting and becoming one. And this is not just in romantic relationships. This is in any great relationship, when two people become one because you're able to set aside your ego and really be with that person. So try that. Wow, good luck. Okay, I got one more question. And is it a good idea to imagine the process of sparring or self-defense in our brain? And I actually had a question like this from a very senior student recently, and I'll tell you the answer that I gave him. The answer is absolutely. And what you might find is you're sitting there imagining, somebody actually attacking you, whether it's physical or verbal or emotional. And sometimes we do this, right? We replay the events of the day, and we replay the part where somebody was really being aggressive and angry and emotional to us. Then we start to get amped up. And when we imagine somebody actually physically attacking us, we get the same thing, right? Our blood starts to boil, and our heart rate raises, and our respiratory raises, and the adrenaline gets heightened. And it's great to feel that, and then to consciously and with purpose relax it and slow it down. I like to practice this sometimes to imagine, even though I've been punched many, many times, I like to think of somebody attacking me, maybe multiple attackers or something that really will kind of get me going. And then consciously slow down my breath while I'm still imagining people attacking me. I'm fully visualizing, getting punched. And well, I try not to visualize getting punched because then I feel like I'm going to will that to happen. I'm imagining somebody punching at me and I'm getting out of the way and they're trying to grab me and I'm escaping and whatever. But when we're engaged in that, our body really starts to, again, this is the process of the ego. This is like fight or flight, like really, and then allow that to disappear and to calm yourself down, because then it's more likely to happen for us in real life. That is one of the reasons why sparring in the dojo or grappling with a partner is so useful, because we get a little taste of that, at least. Even if your partner's being a great partner, you get to feel that, like, kind of aggressive physical nature of the practice. And then in the moment, to be able to practice being calm and still being able to move and responding well, right? It's kind of like creating a pause and then being able to do the best possible thing in whatever situation you're finding yourself in. We want to be able to do that in self-defense. If we never practice it in our minds or in the dojo, it is almost certainly not going to happen out there in the real world for us. So practice it. Now, if you're practicing it and you cannot get yourself calm and all you're doing is getting yourself riled up and getting angry, and that's just the place that you stay every time that you imagine it, it's okay a couple of times, because you don't want to be caught off guard when you actually experience that in real life. But there's a point of diminishing returns where you're now just kind of getting yourself stressed for no good reason. So make sure that you are allowing yourself to get there. And maybe if you can't deal with it that well, then only get yourself halfway there and then really go back to the breath. And we want to create this connection in our mind that becomes automatic, that when we start to get riled up and our blood starts to boil, we immediately go to the breath and we immediately get ourselves as calm as we can, even if it's for a moment, so that then we can respond to it. And then maybe allow yourself to go, again, like amp it up a little bit, turn it up to a 6 or a 7, and it's a lot more aggressive now. And then again, be able to bring yourself back to it. There was this drill that we did at my Sifu's school back in Michigan. He called it shock and awe. And he would put us, this is a separate class for people who wanted to really be put through it. And he put us through these very stressful, very scary situations, sometimes brought out weapons. Multiple attackers are very aggressive, very emotional, swearing, all kinds of stuff that you would never expect to see in the dojo, to the end of helping us to experience it and prepare us for that if it ever happened in real life. And we want to be able to practice that and realize that we have the ability to keep ourselves centered and calm and to be able to deal with it in a powerful way. And we've got to be able to do that in everything in life, not just a physical attack, but in emotional confrontations. We've got to be able to connect to our breath and whatever can keep us in the moment, whatever can give us the pause to then choose our response, and to be able to choose that response immediately if it's necessary, and then to move forward with our response without second guessing is very necessary and very difficult, but with practice we'll get there. So with your meditation tonight, again, don't just sit there and get yourself all amped up and think about, like, this is not really what meditation is for, is to visualize self-defense scenarios. If it happens, it happens, and you feel yourself starting to get amped up, relax and focus on the breath and practice that. But recognize that we are, even if you're not getting such violent mood swings in your meditation, you're still practicing connecting your mind to the breath. And that is forming those neural pathways and reinforcing this habit of going back to the breath, getting yourself calm, getting yourself able to choose your response and then respond well. So sit comfortably.